I see a green light. Oh, and I hear myself, so there you go. Okay. We have a quorum, so hold on. Call to order the meeting of the East Point Planning Commission for Thursday, June 2nd, 2022 at 7:04 p.m. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll?
Present.
Mr. Lalonde? Ms. Julinski? Present. John DeHunt?
Present.
Chairman Palazzolo?
Here. Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting with the modification of adding a new item A under new business for a review of the planner's memorandum related to event spaces and all other items under new business shifting down?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second? Are there any comments, questions, or other proposed changes to the agenda? Hearing none, we have a motion by Vice Chair DeHunt and a second from Commissioner Lalonde. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. We move on to the first hearing of the public. If you would like to comment on any of the topics listed under Section 5 of the agenda, that's the 9 Mile Road self-storage facility, the event space at 22345 Kelly, or the event space at 24850 Gratiot, we ask that you hold those comments until the public hearings, which are later in the agenda. If you'd like to comment on any other topic, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you are called, please approach the podium, state your name, write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes.
Hi, I live on Marine Avenue.
Sorry, would you please state your name?
Winelda Wilson.
Thank you, ma'am.
I live on Marine Avenue, 22224 Marine, and my lawn was cut because it was in violation of the 6-inch rule. And I would like to talk about that rule and why it applies to everyone without any particular consideration to what their circumstances may be. I've lived there for 6 years. My lawn has been immaculate for 6 years. I've had a lawn service. However, as everyone knows, currently there is a deficit in workers. I can show you the text messages where I was continuously texting my lawn service starting back in April asking for a spring cleanup. He kept putting me off, saying that there was rain and several delays. I did maintain what I could maintain. You will see I planted flowers in my lawn as I do every year, but I do not own a lawnmower. Well, I did not prior to this year. I purchased one 2 weeks ago because my lawn guy still never showed up. You'll see I can show you the text messages, which are date stamped with me continuously communicating with him. There has to be some type of provisions for this different year that we are having in terms of the lack of workers. I currently work in HR. I know firsthand how hard it is to get workers in every single industry, and landscaping is not excluded from that. As a result, I've purchased the lawnmower, I've cut my lawn myself. I even texted him, and I didn't know the city cut my lawn. I even put it on the East Point Facebook page, thanking the lawn fairy who cut my lawn. When I came home from work, the lawn was cut. I had no idea the city had cut my lawn. With that being said, I live directly across the street from a lawn that is continuously never cut. And miraculously, that lawn wasn't cut the same day that mine was cut, and it still isn't cut. I have pictures of that. I have pictures of what my lawn looks like now. I have a sharing library that I funded. I put in front of my house myself. I put books in it for the children. During this pandemic, I've put food in there. I turned it into a food pantry. I am the complete opposite of someone who does not care about their home and care about the community. But I'm being penalized because we're living in unprecedented times, and I had no other way to get my lawn serviced besides buying a lawnmower myself, which I did. I hate every second of it, but I'll do it to make sure that my lawn looks pristine. But it's not anything I want to do, and I'm praying that I don't have to continue to do it. Someone will eventually come and cut my grass. So that's all I have to say. I can show you the pictures of my lawn now. I can show you pictures of my lawn from the past. My lawn is always pristine. If any of you have ever driven on Marine, you'll know my house because it's the only one that has the sharing library, right on two houses off the corner of Rosetta.
Thank you, ma'am.
Do I need to put my name on this piece of paper?
Please do. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we move on to the approval of minutes. Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting dated April 7th, 2022?
Make that motion.
Do we have a second?
Support.
We have motion by Vice Chair DeHaan, second from Commissioner Jelinski. Are there any comments, questions, concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Ford? Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. And I'm sorry, please, for the record, let us note that Commissioner Naylor has joined us. We move on to the public hearings for this evening. Item A, this is a public hearing for a conditional rezoning request to facilitate a self-storage facility located at 14919 East 9 Mile Road. If you would like to comment on this topic, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you are called, please approach the podium, state your name, record your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this topic? Sir.
My name is Sahar Iskander. I'm the designer of record on this project, and I'm here on behalf of the project owner, Mr. Tony DeMambro. Now I'll just write my name here. Okay. So we've made some changes to the preliminary site plan, and basically what we did from our last submittal was that we broke up the building into 4 chunks, each chunk having 4 units within that. And I think that was, it just kind of served as to kind of scale down the project from just a visual perception. And what we also did is we just provided some landscaping in between each unit. And then the screening of the landscaping to screen all the way around from the west, north, and the east side of those 4 units. And I'm just here to answer any questions or any comments.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to speak on the conditional rezoning request for the self-storage facility at 14919 East 9 Mile Road? Seeing none, we move on to public hearing, item B. This is a special land use hearing for proposed event space to be located at 22345 Kelly Road. If you would like to comment on this topic, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you are called, please approach the podium, state your name, record your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Yes, ma'am.
I wish to speak to provide the memo.
Can we do that after the public hearings and new business? I'm sorry, I might have misunderstood your request. So we put it as a new item A under new business.
Okay.
So it'll be the first thing after we get through the public hearing. Yes, ma'am.
All right, my name first. My name is Lenasia Blythe. I'm here to talk about the private event space on 22345 Kelly. Well, the event space, it is a private event space. It's not a club, because I know someone had a few concerns about it being a club. It's not a club. It's not a social gathering for, the adult parties, I should say. It's more so, we've been doing sweet 16s, prom send-offs, community gatherings for kids, kids who's doing businesses. We're trying to help them to expand and just grow. I'm not sure the concern, but we have multiple people who, because we heard that it may have been an issue about parking. We have people who has agreed to share parking with us in different lots, in our same lot as well. We're not sure what the issue may really be, because it hasn't been any problems, I should say, that we know of, besides someone said something about some parking. But I don't know, we're just asking for you to grant us the ability to run the business. We're not here to disrupt East Point, to do anything crazy. We're just here to expand and to help. That's all we're doing. So I don't know if you guys have questions for us as far as what we need to do or anything. We're willing to do whatever it takes to make it happen. I think she may want to speak on our behalf as well.
There will be a discussion and question and answer period later in the agenda, but at this point, it's just comment.
Okay, thank you.
Just the comments?
If you'd like, ma'am.
Okay. We have another business also.
I'm sorry, would you please state your name and then record it on the ledger?
My name is Kimberly Harris. We have another business in East Point. We had another business in East Point for 11 years. We actually moved from 8 Mile and Gratiot to Kelly. And we're just trying to expand our business to help the community as well. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to comment on the proposed event space to be located at 22345 Kelly Road? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for item B, move on to item C. This is a special land use hearing for a proposed event space to be located at 24850 Gratiot Avenue. If you would like to comment on this topic, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you are called, please approach the podium, state your name, write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing for item C and move on to new business. We have a new item A, which is a memorandum from the planning staff related to event spaces. Would the planner like to present the memo?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for having us today. I just wanted to say to all of the applicants, do I have to keep holding this? No, I don't. All of the applicants today have been working earnestly with the planning department. They've been corresponding in email, having direct meetings. So I just want to say they've been working really hard on this, and thank you for your time today. So this memorandum is to set the foundation for a conversation today and understand how event spaces are identified in the zoning ordinance and in planning terms. So event spaces are not new to the city of East Point, but the way these businesses are processed has varied over time. Can you guys hear me okay too? Okay. The purpose of this memorandum is to detail how event spaces are currently classified in the zoning ordinance and to inform the commission on how event spaces have been previously processed by former city administration. So first of all, event spaces in the zoning ordinance. The term event space is not defined in the zoning ordinance. However, in the absence of a definition in the zoning ordinance, planning department considers similar uses, so synonymous uses to that event, or to the use itself, and we use that to determine zoning requirements. So the planning department finds that assembly hall is the most similar use to event spaces, and assembly halls are permitted as special land uses in B1 and B3 districts. And then another similar use for event space is a private club, fraternal order, or lodge hall. These are permitted. They don't require special land uses, but these are permitted in the B1 and B3 districts. The definition of club, lodge, or fraternity is an organization for special purposes that usually has some more mission. You can see the definition listed in the meeting packet today. Just so you guys know, assembly halls do not have a definition in the zoning ordinance, but I did find a definition from the American Planning Association, a planner's dictionary. If you want, I can pass out that literature or recite it, whatever you prefer. But going to the second item of the memorandum, we want to know a little bit about the history of how former city administration has processed event space. So previously, the Planning and Building Department has considered event spaces as social clubs. Therefore, they're considered clubs, which means that there are several existing spaces within the city that did not receive a special land use, because as we remember, private clubs are permitted as by right in B1 and B3 districts. One existing event space is actually in the B1 district, 1 block south of the proposed 22345 Kelly event space. Then, due to the change in administration and how event spaces are processed, there has been some confusion amongst the applicants on the steps necessary to open an event space. We have some owners of event spaces that are here today, as we just heard. While business licensure and certificates of occupancy are always required, the special land use, public hearing, planning commission meeting, and city council meetings are new to applicants. So some of the owners are of existing event spaces. Again, just wanted to lay this foundation conversation as we enter the event space topics of today.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the city planner?
I do. Due to the change in administration, when was that? Do you know when that was, about when that shift in the way we handle it has changed?
2016
16?
or earlier.
All right. Or earlier, like a year, or, I mean, is that the ballpark range?
Yes. It's when McKenna started, so when we started acting as planners. Okay, so there's some change in that too. So 2016.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions? If the individuals feel comfortable removing their mask, you may do so. If you do not feel comfortable, you can leave your mask on. Thank you, Mr. Jakubiec. We move on to item B, in new business. Will the planner please review the memorandum of May 26, 2022 related to the conditional rezoning?
Thank you, Chairman Palazzolo. This application before you is a revised submission from the original rezoning request for a self-storage facility that would only be permitted with the rezoning from the P1 vehicular parking district to the B3 general business district. So on page 2 of our second review, we provide some background on the property, that the rezoning is necessary in order to construct the self-storage facility, as only surface parking is permitted in the P1 district, which the property is currently zoned. In March of this year, a public hearing for the original rezoning request was conducted by the Planning Commission, and no public comment was made at that evening. The applicant did appear before the commission in March and asked for recommendations on how to create a better transition between their property and the adjacent residential areas, as this portion of the parcel does encroach into the established neighborhood. At the March meeting, the commission raised some concerns regarding the height of the storage facility, the design of the facade, how the facility might be secured, and what the hours of operation or access might be. Then ultimately, in March, this item was tabled. Since then, the applicant has proposed a conditional rezoning, and as a conditional rezoning, the applicant is offering some voluntary restrictions to be placed on the property. Their conditional rezoning agreement, their CRA, dated May 5th, proposes that while the property would be rezoned to the B3 commercial district, the only allowable additional use would be for the self-storage facility. They've also offered to place a condition on the property that no outdoor storage would be permitted. They've also provided a revised preliminary site plan to show the screening mechanisms that they're proposing in order to make this a more harmonious transition. So as a conditional rezoning, the next step for the Planning Commission is to make a recommendation to City Council, who is the ultimate authority. So this would be a recommendation of approval or denial as a conditional rezoning. The Planning Commission cannot attach any additional conditions. On page 3 of our review, we offer a motion of recommendation of approval based on 5 findings of fact. The first is that with this conditional rezoning agreement, that future commercial uses are significantly limited on the subject site, as only self-storage facilities would be allowed and no outdoor storage could be considered. The second finding is that the applicant has provided for landscaping to screen the storage facilities from the residential neighborhood, that they have provided for 4 separate storage structures as opposed to a single self-storage facility to break up the massing. The fourth finding is that as they've presented the limited commercial, that this can align with the future land use map of the city's adopted 2040 master plan. And with the limited commercial, the fifth finding is that it will not set an inappropriate precedent to allow for unchecked commercial encroachment into established residential neighborhoods. We'd like to note that if the Planning Commission makes a recommendation this evening of approval to City Council for their consideration, that does not issue site plan approval. The applicant would still be responsible for coming before the Planning Commission and City Council for the special land use itself of the self-storage facility and the site plan. On page 3 of our report, we've also listed 5 items for further consideration by the applicant for their site plan. These are not to be included with the motion this evening, just items for the applicant to consider to further increase that harmonious transition. So that would be a detailed landscape plan, clarification on the dumpsters in this area, lighting details, how the storage units would be secured, and dimension, building elevations, and exterior facade materials. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner?
I have a question.
Yes.
Does this open us up to the situation where any commercial real estate in the city that might have additional space behind their building are we stepping onto a slippery slope here potentially, where we're gonna see little tin cans popping up everywhere where there might be additional space?
Sorry, as it's presented with the conditional rezoning agreement, no. The applicant would still have to go through the site plan approval. There's limitations on what could be developed in this rear of the property. They're gonna be using existing impervious surface. I don't see it setting a precedent.
And the next question I have is, I understand that nobody came and spoke at the last public hearing, and nobody came to this public hearing. Have letters gone out to the neighbors adjacent to that, and has there been any response to the city?
As a conditional rezoning or a rezoning, just in general, notices to adjacent property owners within 300 feet must be mailed via certified mail and also noticed in the newspaper. I'm not aware of any written correspondence that the city has received. At the March meeting, one of the recommendations of the commission to the applicant was to speak directly with some of those residents. I'm unaware if they have done that themselves.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the city planner? Would the applicant like to approach the podium, or the representative for the applicant, please approach the podium? And just one more time for the record, please, your name, sir?
Sahar Iskander?
Thank you, sir. Do you need Vice Chair DeHaan to restate the question?
Yes, please, just to,
Has the owner or yourself reached out to any of the residents immediately around the proposed site? And has there been any communication, either pro or con?
yes, so I communicated with him this morning. He said that he sent out 3 letters to the adjacent neighbors, and he hasn't gotten any responses or comments back.
Send those letters, do you know? I mean, was it like the day before, or I mean, was it an adequate amount of time for people to respond?
I would have to get with him on that and follow up with you on that.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant's representative? I have a couple questions. One particularly, how does this revised plan address questions of access and security?
So in terms of the access, I think what we talked, me and the owner, he basically said that he's looking into a way to maybe have like some kind of a digital padlock on each unit, and that will maybe just control like a pin just during the hours of operation. But we didn't have anything in terms of like fencing the entire property around the storage buildings. But
No other physical barrier around the units
Correct.
to restrict access? It would just be padlocks?
yeah, padlocks, and maybe for security purposes, maybe a camera on the adjacent existing plaza that's there that will be facing the storage structures.
And you had mentioned that these padlocks might have remote timers on them that would only allow access at certain times? Is that the discussion?
That's something that he suggested and he's looking into to see if there is a such padlock that he would be able to control, just to set it up so that it's only during business operations.
And what would business operations be, to the best of your knowledge?
I'll get with him on that, and I'm assuming it would be something that we'd have to adhere to with the cities.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant's representative? Thank you, sir. Any comments, questions, concerns?
I have a question for the planner. Is B3, you may have said this, I'm sorry if you did, but is B3 required for the purpose of the storage facility, the storage units?
Correct, yes.
B3 is required?
Yes, it would either be B3 as a special land use or industrial as a permitted
Okay.
use.
B1 does not permit that as a special land use? Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Sir, I am so sorry. I had a second question and I forgot it, and I passed you off. I'm so sorry. Please come back. Second question, I'm sorry. Second question I had. If there was ever a desire on the part of the applicant to remove the storage facility and resume parking on those spaces, is that something that had been discussed?
No.
No.
No, we just, basically, that's the intent that the owner wants to achieve, is just to put a mini storage facility there. That's something that he just outlined on the conditional rezoning agreement.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Do any other commissioners have any comments, questions, concerns related to the conditional rezoning? Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional rezoning as articulated in the planner's report based on the findings of fact dated May 26, 2020.
In that motion, I would like to see it include the fact that there will be security cameras, not may, and that we need definition of what the locking mechanism is. If there's not going to be any sort of fencing around it to secure the property, we need to know for sure, not may.
Commissioners, as a conditional rezoning application, the Planning Commission cannot, under Michigan statute, apply additional conditions. Those would have to wait. Should City Council approve the conditional rezoning, the applicant would be required to come back before special land use, and at that time, the Planning Commission could dictate some additional stipulations.
Thank you.
I have a question for the planner. If this was approved with the conditional approval, rezoning, does that mean that any other B3, in other words, how am I going to say this? What other applicable uses could there be in the future if it's not storage?
It could only be storage. That is one of the voluntary conditions the applicant is offering. So it could only be used as the surface parking as it is today or for the self-storage facility.
So if it was approved at B3 with the conditions attached, and they wanted to change it to parking, they would have to come in front of this body to get it rezoned, or to get the conditional approval removed.
It would just, the existing parking spaces would be utilized. If they wanted to remove the vegetation that they're proposing to install and repave or something like that, then that might trigger some additional review. But it would either be allowed to be used as it is today with those existing parking spaces or the self-storage.
Okay, thank you.
But actually, no, I have a question, because following up on that, I don't see that as a condition, a stipulated condition of the memo that's been provided. The allowance for parking. The conditions as proposed by the applicant would only allow it to be used for storage, which is the purpose of my question, and asking if there was ever an intent to use it as parking again. However, if we recommend approval of the conditional rezoning, that conditional rezoning is approved by council, those stipulations hold with the property, correct? And I apologize, I'm looking at you, sir, but if anyone can answer, feel free.
I thought you had mentioned you were specifically directing your question.
You know what, I probably was, and I was looking at you because it looked like you were going to say something. So if, Mr. Albright, if you would like to respond.
Thank you. So if you could just restate the question, just so we're clear.
So based on my understanding of the conditional, the language of the conditional rezoning under state law, that if an applicant provides conditions on the rezoning, the stipulations of those conditions hold with the land, right?
That's correct. They're one
Okay.
with the land.
So if the stipulation of the conditional rezoning, as directed by the applicant, is that it may only may be used for storage, then parking would not be allowed.
Well, it would revert back to the old use, which is the parking. If it's not going to be used for the storage, which they're proposing to do, then that condition would no longer be applicable.
But in the approval of the condition, of the conditional rezoning, right, we are functionally rezoning that property from P1 to P3. The portion of the property affected by the rezoning could then, by my understanding, only be used for the stipulations of that conditional rezoning.
Right, but it's currently being used for parking, correct?
Right, as a P1.
So if that additional use or burdened use is no longer being used, then it goes automatically back to, it's just like if they were to violate the conditional rezoning agreement in any way. They don't get to utilize what they've been approved to do pursuant to the conditional rezoning agreement.
The ordinance also states that, not the East Point zoning ordinance states that if the applicant doesn't act on this conditional rezoning and construct the structures within 2 years, then the property just naturally reverts back to the P1.
Okay,
Which is currently being used for now. It just
Okay.
reverts back.
Okay.
Thank you, Laura.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, was your question answered?
Yes, the duration of the,
Okay.
if it wasn't used for that purpose, what was the duration and what would be the outcome of that? If, if they built storage, get a little deep here. If they built storage, or they started to build storage and they stopped, and 2 years later, they're not using it for storage purposes, and they haven't used it for storage, would they have to remove the items? Just, this is more curious than anything. What would be the outcome of that? Like, you can't use it for parking if you've got steel rods out of the ground or, steel fence built around it.
I would say, my understanding is that they need to, once this is approved, they need to be up and running within 2 years.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Yep.
They can also ask city council for a 1-year extension, if they show good cause. Otherwise, the city can revoke.
Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to recommend approval of the conditional rezoning as articulated in the planner's report based on the findings of fact in the memo of May 26, 2020?
Mr. Chair.
I would recommend, just so the record is clear, whoever the maker of the motion is, I would read those findings of fact into the record as well, just so there isn't any ambiguities.
Even though they're already listed on the document?
Yes.
Yes, read them, okay. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to recommend the approval of the proposed conditional rezoning from P1 Vehicular Parking District to the B3 General Business District for the northern property portion of 14919 East 9 Mile parcel ID 021325479057 to City Council based on the following facts. The proposed conditional rezoning agreement limits future commercial use on the subject site to only self-storage facilities and prevents the use of any outdoor storage. That was number one. Number two, the proposed conditional rezoning preliminary site plan provides for landscaping to screen two storage facilities to the north, east, and west, the residential areas collectively. Number three, the proposed conditional rezoning preliminary site plan provides for 4 self-storage structures as opposed to a larger single building. Number four, the request can align with the future land use map of the 2040 master plan. And lastly, number five, the request will not set an inappropriate precedent, i.e., it will not allow for unchecked future commercial encroachment into established residential neighborhoods.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion by Commissioner Roll and second by Commissioner Lalonde. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns? I will comment on this very quickly. I do not believe that it adequately protects public health and safety due to the lack of security on or around the storage facility, and I'm also concerned about the timing of operations, and furthermore, I do believe it will set a dangerous precedent. I will be voting no. Any other comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Mr. DeHunt,
No.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, no. Chairman Palazzolo,
No. We move on to item C. I guess we'll leave it for that.
We've never had a tie.
Well, tie is a non-pass,
Yeah, that's what we learned in parliamentary.
so, yeah.
Yes.
So, suppose we can see it again sometime when there's a full body. Unless you recommend we now make a motion to table.
It is something that if,
It's an action, we took it, it is what it is. I don't know if there's,
if the maker of the motion wishes to rescind that motion and have a vote on that, and then table it to a later date, that's something that this body could entertain if they choose to do so.
I don't want to rescind the motion.
all right. We move on to item C, Will the planner please review the memorandum of May 26, 2022?
Thank you. This application is for a special land use of an event hall facility at 22345 Kelly Road. This property, this application is one of 3 event halls this evening, and each of the 3 applications is located in a different zoning district. So this first application on Kelly Road is located in the B1 local business district. Our recommendation follows on page 3, which, pending any further comments from the public, we recommend, the Planning Commission recommend denial to City Council of the proposed special land use based on 6 findings of fact. The first is that while this does reoccupy an existing vacant building, which does support some of the redevelopment goals of the adopted master plan, we find that the proposed event hall is too intensive of a use at this location and that it would be better suited along another commercial corridor in the city that better lends to a more regional network of uses. The second is that the subject site is planned for flexible residential neighborhood mixed use on the future land use map of the adopted master plan, which is specifically intended to permit neighborhood serving uses and businesses primarily for the convenience of East Point residents, as opposed to more regional oriented commercial. Third, the site is located along Kelly Road, which is already more of a local neighborhood serving corridor. And the property is adjacent to other B1 local business district zoning designations and directly adjacent to single-family residential neighborhood. The fourth finding is that the site is deficient in the number of parking spaces that are required for the event hall by 10 parking spaces. The fifth finding is that the site is deficient in residential screening for the adjacent residentially used and zoned property. The applicant has requested a waiver to not install the required 6-foot masonry screening wall. And lastly, number 6, that previously this year there were public comments made regarding the proposed use at this location due to the lack of parking for patrons and the encroachment of guest parking on the residential side streets. We have not proposed a site plan motion for the commission, as we are recommending denial. As a special land use, City Council holds the final authority. Should they decide to deny or approve the special land use, if they did decide to approve, then we recommend the Planning Commission would again take a look at the site plan at a later date and not consider it at this time. Thank you.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner?
I did have a question on item E, the screening of that area. If there's not currently a 6-foot masonry wall in that
Correct.
area that they're asking for, is there a reason why there's not a current one there?
The previous commercial tenants did not erect it.
So that's optional to the business owner? For
No.
the director, well, I thought it was a requirement.
You're
for
correct.
Residential screening.
Yes, it is a requirement. So I can't speak to the specifics of why a masonry wall was not originally erected at this location. But there are several other properties, of course, across the city where the screening wall is not present. And as sites develop into more intensive uses, that's an opportunity for compliance with the zoning code and the masonry wall requirement. And the applicant is still requesting a waiver from that today.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for the city planner? Would the applicant like to come forward and address the issues identified in the planner's report? Please come on.
First of all,
Sorry, please state your name again for the record.
my name is Kimberly Harris.
Thank you.
The screening wall that she's referring to, is that what she's referring to cover the garbage can?
No.
What is the screening wall for? Because behind my building, the tenants or the residents, he has a wall and a fence built up, so nothing can be built on that side. We discussed this in a meeting before, and, about the parking, we have signatures from all the residents, all the business owners on that strip and the next strip to use the parking. And it's halls and clubs all along Kelly. I don't understand why we've been denied.
Did you provide the signatures?
Yes, I talked to, I think it was Dennis, and it's another lady, she owns a cleaning, resale store, and she has, I think, 5 businesses right there. She came and paid her things and said she was gonna sign the paper, but she couldn't sign, she didn't wanna sign her signature, but she said she was waiting till a check cleared or something, because she had to renew her license, because they had her down as a cleaners, and it's not a cleaners, it's a resale store. So she had to pay her taxes, so she says she has no problem with signing it. I have all the ones in my lot that were signed. I live on Curtin, which my hall is right there. My neighbor said they were having no problem with signing, and I don't understand why we're being denied this halls and clubs all along Kelly. And we're willing to do anything it takes to make it happen, and we told them that. But the only thing, the real issue is just the parking, and we got signatures, and I don't have the paper with me, but I do have signatures from other business owners that said we can park in their lot. And we have enough space because I own a boutique right next to the hall.
And are those signatures, or is that document in the form of a contract, like a shared parking agreement?
Yeah, I have the shared parking agreement. I have the paper, but a lot of them signed on the back of it. You can only do one at a time to each one for that thing, but they did sign on the back of them.
Okay. And you provided that document?
No, I ended up
Okay.
leaving it. I'm sorry,
Okay.
but I do have it.
Okay. Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant? Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to table discussion and action on the special land use for the property located at 22345 Kelly Road until the July 2022 meeting of the Planning Commission to allow the applicant to provide additional documentation and information related to the issues identified in the planner's report?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have support?
I support Kimball.
We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHaan, a motion to table by Vice Chair DeHaan, and a support from Commissioner Naylor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
No.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo,
Yes. Move on to item D. Will the planner please review the memorandum of May 26, 2022, related to the, is this another special land use? Yes, special land use.
Yes, thank you. So this is a special land use and site plan considerations for another event hall located at 24850 Gratiot in the General Business District or B3 District. Our applicant here today is Rob Davis from Points Event Hall. The applicant seeks to reoccupy a former martial arts studio and use the space as an event hall. Again, event halls are considered assembly halls within the B3 district and require special land use. As such, there are 2 considerations at the table for the Planning Commission today. One is a special land use consideration with 3 findings of fact. The planning staff recommends the following recommendation: to approve the proposed special land use for the event hall located at 24850 Gratiot, with the recommendation that the maximum hours of operation be limited to midnight for events, with cleanup activities to occur no later than 1 a.m., based on the following facts. First of all, the subject site is planned for regional commercial on the future land use map of the 2040 master plan, so it's intended to permit more intensive commercial uses that serve the greater region. The second fact, the subject site is located within a regional commercial corridor and is adjacent to other B3 uses and is buffered from the residential neighborhood to the east by a surface parking lot. The third fact is the proposal makes use of an existing vacant building, which we've already discussed today, supports redevelopment goals of the 2040 master plan. The second consideration for site plan,
If I could.
Sure.
If you wouldn't mind just sticking to the special land use review for now, and then we'll evaluate that. We'll evaluate the site plan after we go through consideration of special land use. So if you want to just, do you want to cover some of the details on the special land use review?
well, the three findings of fact that I previously mentioned synthesize the review. I'm here to answer any other questions
Okay,
as needed.
all right, thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner related to the special land use?
I do. I'm interested to hear why you think that, what's the logic behind closing at 11 or midnight? Wasn't that one of the items you bullet pointed? And then clean up till by 1?
Board, do you want me to-
Am I missed? Did I?
Yes,
Or maybe,
thought so.
yeah.
Commissioner Burrell, that, those hours of operation are similar to the hours of operation proposed for the other event hall on Gratiot Road, as well as consistent with other event spaces that were at one point considered by the Planning Commission, although maybe not approved, such as the Chameleon event space off of 8 Mile. So consistent with how the Planning Commission has discussed hours of operation with the public and developers before.
Okay, thank you.
And we can ask the applicant to approach the podium and answer that question as well, but if there are any other questions for the planner, we'll get through those first.
Are these hours of operations consistent with what is imposed upon, say, East Point Manor or the LFA Hall?
That I do not know offhand.
So, the proposed event hours are on page 5 of the packet in the table.
I'll tell you why I asked the question, and I don't disagree with the recommendation, but it's just kind of interesting because I consider this to be similar in some ways to a bar, in that a bar could be packed full of people till 2 o'clock. And yet we're holding these people to a different standard that's actually it's a little less intensive in terms of the hours. I don't disagree with the hours. I think it's solid. I don't have a problem with it. I was just trying to see if there was some type of reasoning between a bar versus this situation, so.
I look at these hours and you have a New Year's Eve party on a weeknight. So at 12:01, everybody is wishing everybody a Happy New Year in the parking lot as they're getting in their car and leaving. It seems highly inappropriate.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the planner or any comments or concerns right now? A representative of the applicant is here. Sir, please, if you don't mind approaching the podium.
My name is Robert Davis. I'm the owner of the Point Event Hall.
Thank you, sir. And if you wouldn't mind, one of the questions that was previously asked is the determination on the hours of operation, and if you wouldn't mind speaking to how those hours of operation were determined.
That's a very good question, because on my first hall, which is on Kelly Road, coincidentally down the street from these young ladies' event hall, I have no parameters. That wasn't designated. This location is being designated. So I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be in compliance with that. So there was no set standard in regards to what I needed to refer to determine these type of hours. He just made an extremely valid point. If I have a New Year's event, those are the circumstances. So the event space has become somewhat of a needed commodity with this whole pandemic type atmosphere. People no longer want to have events in their home. They want to have controlled gatherings. That's where the need for event spaces arose. That's why there's such a huge influx of these type of businesses coming to East Point. East Point is a self-regulated area. people know they have to act a certain standard when they come across the East Point. That's why we've all migrated over here, because we care about where we're at, we care about the business that we're creating, we care about what we're offering to the people. The event space is not a nuisance, it's a controlled environment. I think it's very important to really reflect on that, because we have to follow certain guidelines. People can have events at their home, on a block, and there's no type of control there. They have nothing to follow until, of course, a neighbor complains and the police arrive. We have a certain standard. We communicate with the people. We care about our business. So we have to show up for that. We have to monitor it. We have to be on site. Anything arises, that liability falls back on us, not some patron or anything of that nature. We have insurance. We have guidelines that we have to follow. It's just more than just opening up an event space. You just equated it to a club. There's a club that's taking place that has violated every rule that can possibly be imagined, and they're still in operation. But for us to be, I don't know, segregated from a need, I don't know, it's kind of interesting. So all I'm saying is, those hours, I have no idea. I had to follow what was set to me, and that's what I did, and that's what I'm going to continue to do.
And so what would you propose the hours of operation?
I technically do not have a problem with those hours, because most importantly, the existing neighbors matter. So we want to make sure we're getting out of there in a fashionable time frame. But for specific events, for special events, there should probably be a little bit more lenience, a little bit more open window of hours, as long as we're taking certain things into consideration.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, I just want to ask, do you have a written shared parking agreement in place?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yes, sir.
And as I recall, that has to be approved by the city attorney. Right.
That's correct.
So my question, I guess, goes to the city planner. How do we moderate these hours, or is there a way to include a trap door for New Year's? Or is there something that we can do, because these hours are crazy to me. What happens if you have a baby shower, so you have to have it after 6 o'clock at night? I'm trying to wrap my head around this. So you can if I look at this proposed hours of operations, if this gentleman has people coming in for a baby shower, they can only have it on a Friday or a Saturday.
Commissioner, these are the proposed hours of operation provided by the applicant.
You need to change your proposed hours.
Yes, sir.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
I think it's a wonderful place. I would love to see something go in that building and sustain it. It's been vacant for far too long.
Absolutely.
And it's a perfect location. It's not interfering with houses, because you have that beaten up parking lot that needs a little attention. And you're on the other side of a commercial lot, you're right off of Grash, it should be easy access. It is a good location.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Fire Marshal. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. So just in reviewing this is maximum occupancies of 120. However, in the fire code for Assembly Group A2, which includes banquet halls, an automatic sprinkler system shall be provided. The following conditions if the fire area or occupant load is 100 or more. So it'd have to be limited at 100 people total. That's workers, everybody in there.
And
Because there's no sprinkler, as far as I know, there's no sprinkler system in there.
Correct, sir.
So it would have to be, you could have 20,000 square feet, it
Right.
doesn't matter. It's the, because it's non-sprinkled,
Right.
it limits it to 100 people in a given area.
And typically, when those restrictions are put in place, that's through the building permitting process, your inspection process, right? And when that signage is put up, yeah, the occupancy standard will,
He's here right now, I just
yeah.
want to make that clear.
No, thank you for that, I appreciate it. Is there a preference on the part of the commissioners? There is a recommendation to approve, a recommendation to approve, with some language related to hours of operation in the packet. Is the commission's will to remove that language and proceed with the recommended language? Okay. So is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to read the recommended motion with the removal of the hours of operation based on the findings of fact, which you'll have to read? You're welcome, sir.
I motion to accept to file a motion to accept the special land use. Any comments from the public during the public hearing? We recommend the planning commission consider the following motion. I move to recommend approval of the proposed special land use for an event at 24850 Crescent Avenue, parcel ID number 0214-30230-001 to city council with the recommended condition that the maximum hours.
Do you want to include that language, or do you want to skip over that
I will
language?
skip over that.
And then based on the following.
Excluding the recommended condition pertaining to hours
Based on the following.
based on the following facts
Yep.
as follows. A, the subject site is planned for regional commercial on the future land use map of the 2040 master plan, which is intended to permit more intensive commercial uses that serve the larger region. B, the subject site is located within a regional commercial corridor and is adjacent to other B3 regional business district zoning designations and is buffered from the residential neighborhood to the east by a dedicated surface parking lot. C, the proposal makes use of an existing vacant building which supports the redevelopment goals of the 2040 master plan.
Do we have support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Naylor and support by Vice Chair DeHunt. Are there any final questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes, I do have questions. So I would like to know what hours of operation that you would like to, that you will propose to operate under. Understand it's not part of the recommendation. I want to understand from you, though, what would be the hours of what would be the latest time you would operate till?
2 a.m.
2 a.m.? Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Any other comments, questions, or concerns?
I have one follow-up question, I guess, for city management. Is there any code as to how late somebody could operate this type of business?
There isn't.
So in the special land use review, we mentioned that there's a noise control ordinance, and I offered the hyperlink to it, but quoting it, the city, the noise ordinance does not allow loud, unnecessary, or unusual noise, or any noise which noise disturbs, injures, or endangers the comfort, repose, health, peace, and safety of others. So if there is a violation of this ordinance, then the city will take action.
Any other comments, questions, concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes?
Mr. DeHunt?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. Will the planner review the portion of the memo dated May 26, 2022 related to the site plan for this particular property?
Yes, the next consideration is the site plan. There are 3 findings of fact. The planning staff recommends that the commission have the following motion: to approve the proposed event space facility at 24850 Gratiot on 3 findings of fact. 1, the shared parking agreement is found acceptable by the city attorney. Two of the 3 on-site parking spaces directly behind the building are dedicated as barrier-free spaces and signed accordingly. And 3, information regarding where the trash containers will be stored within the building be provided. Right now on the site plan, there are 4 curbside 96-gallon trash containers. We want to know where they will be stored.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner and the report? Or for the city attorney related to the shared parking? Sir, would you like to speak to the issues that were raised in the planner's report, particularly the location of the trash containers?
May I approach with the document to someone?
Sure, you can bring 'em.
So this picture was intentionally taken at night because it needed to reflect the outside, that blank that exists. And you can see right there, that's where the trash cans were located.
Okay.
It's in the rear of the building. This, sir, is the shared parking area.
Did you want this back?
No, sir, that's for you gentlemen and ladies.
And I'm sorry, sir, have you submitted a copy of that to the city at this point?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Albright, have you seen a copy of this? No, Mr. Chairman. You have not, okay. Mr. Albright, you have 2 minutes. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, please.
I just had a question on B, more for informational purposes, we asked that 2 of the 3 on-site parking spaces are dedicated as barrier-free and marked. Is that like a no parking, like for fire zones or something?
Handicap.
ADA compliance.
ADA compliance, okay.
Yep.
As explained to me, 2 needed to be designated for handicap, 1 needed to be for loading.
Is a commissioner prepared to approve the proposed event space facility at 24850 Gratiot Avenue, parcel ID 02143023000001, provided that the special land, or contingent upon the following, that the shared parking agreement is found acceptable by the city attorney. 2 of the 3 on-site parking spaces directly behind the subject building are dedicated as barrier-free spaces and are so signed, and that information regarding where the trash containers will be stored within the building is provided to the city for the record.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion? Okay, we have a motion by Vice Chair Hunt, support from Commissioner Lalonde. Do any commissioners have any final comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We move on to item E, which is receipt and filing of a master plan amendment for the city of Roseville. Do any commissioners have any questions, comments, or concerns related to the document regarding the master plan amendment for the city of Roseville? No? And the city planners can attest that the building department or planning office has received this document and has recorded it for the file?
Correct, it was adopted the first week of May. by Roseville.
Thank you. If there are no other comments, questions, or concerns, we'll move on to item F. Who will speak to the joint planning and zoning training with ZBA?
The request this evening is to confirm with the Planning Commission your availability to attend a joint training seminar with the Zoning Board of Appeals. It's tentatively scheduled for June 16th at 7 p.m. That is the regular meeting date of the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Do any commissioners have any questions regarding the training?
No, but I can't make that date.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Hang on, I'll tell you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions, comments, or concerns related to the proposed training?
Oh, I take that back. I can make that date. My thing is in the morning. I have to clean up Belle Isle.
Oh, I might see you there.
Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Excellent, all right. I'll see you there. Yeah. Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to approve the joint planning and zoning training with ZBA on June 16th, 2022 at 7:00 PM?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHaan and support from Secretary Yelinski. Are there any final comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHaan?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor? Yes. Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. We move on to item G. Is there anyone, unfortunately, Commissioners Broll and Commissioners Yelinski are unable to participate in the zoning ordinance steering committee. Are there any other volunteers to participate in the zoning ordinance steering committee?
And know that it's during the day.
How many times are they gonna meet?
And actually, it's a great question. At some point, and I'm trying to find the memo, there is a memo in here that identifies the dates and times, correct?
Correct. There are 7 more meetings in 2020, once a month. It's the second to the fourth Tuesday, generally.
PDF page 46.
Oh, thank you, okay.
And at least the next 2 months for June and July are proposed to be virtual.
Do you see that, Commissioner Lalonde?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for planning staff on participation?
Just for the record, I can't make it during the business days either, so.
I'll volunteer.
Okay. Commissioner Lalonde?
I'm the only one retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of nice to have to go out.
Is there anyone else who can volunteer? Who? Okay,
I tentatively volunteer, but I will have to look at some of these later dates, because 2 to 4 can be challenging.
okay.
But I can see if I can. Who would I get back with if I can't just get with?
With the city planners?
Okay.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you. Is a commissioner prepared to nominate Commissioners Lalonde and Commissioners Lalonde and Naylor to the Zoning Ordinance Steering Committee?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Broll and support by Vice Chair DeHaan. Any final comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
And Mr. DeHaan?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
And Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. We move on to unfinished business. Item A, will the planner please review the memorandum of April 28th, 2022?
This is another site plan review application. Planning Commission's seen this in March, but it's 22410 Gratiot Avenue in the downtown district, B2 district. The applicant is Lisa Hightower, who's also a Downtown Development Authority Board of Director. And again, Planning Commission is familiar with this application. Since the March 3rd meeting, the applicant has worked with staff to update the site plan and provide more information on how it conforms to the zoning ordinance. Therefore, the planner has the following recommendation. It is recommended that Planning Commission grant site plan approval for the proposed event space at 22410 Gratiot, contingent that the max capacity for events is limited to 50 individuals, which the applicant cites that they will have that capacity, and that at the time of the event bookings, the business owner provides details to the location of appropriate guest parking areas.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner?
I do.
Oh, yes.
What wasn't the issue, I'm sorry, I don't remember, wasn't the issue the floor space, or was it the number of participants last time? Potential participants?
There's several outstanding information that the Planning Commission requested. So one is the number of participants, and then also the purpose of the events, where they're going to park, that sort of thing.
But isn't the parking spots based on, what is the basis for parking spots? Is it participants, or is it square footage of floor space that's used for the purpose?
So parking is based off of the usable social area, so the usable floor space that guests occupy. Not storage, not bathrooms, but the floor area that guests will stand on.
So does the number of parking spots and the square footage align now so that that is an acceptable, or it meets that requirement?
Yes,
It does now?
it does.
So the floor space is smaller than it was
Yes.
previously? Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Burrow, there was also some confusion with the original site plan in that the number of tables and chairs that were depicted wasn't to scale. And so there was an excess amount of seating that was showing on the site plan, which has been
Thank you.
corrected.
Any other questions for the city planners? And unless I missed that, I do apologize. What is the purpose of the limiting capacity? And what is the basis of that limitation?
Well, the applicant proposed that they would have at least up to 50 occupants at a time. And there's no basis other than us at the Planning Commission deciding if that's the amount of people that we want to see in the B2 district at that space, if that's an appropriate amount of traffic.
Fire Marshal, what is the capacity of the building?
So, based on, there was 2511 square feet, right? Something like that? Usable square feet?
1562.
1562. So 1562, really they could have, I mean, 104 is what, the usable space, since it's not suppressed, it would be 100 persons.
Okay.
Based on what is proposed as usable space.
Okay.
They could be up to 100 persons now on my end, but if they're saying because of parking or something else, it's only 50.
Okay.
I can go 50.
Okay.
I can go less, I just can't go more.
Right. Thank you, sir. And I apologize to make you repeat yourself, but the required number of parking spaces is based on square footage, correct?
The total usable social area.
Total usable social area, correct? Okay. And based on that usable area, they comply?
Yes.
Okay. Would the applicant like to approach the podium and respond to any of the comments, questions, concerns of the planners? No? Do any commissioners have any questions for the applicant?
I have a question. I'm just curious, why are you limiting it to 50 individuals?
My name is Lisa Hightower, and because we only have tables and chairs to accommodate up to 50 people, maybe a little more, but that's why.
Based on the floor?
Yeah,
layout, that's the
yes.
appropriate number of tables and chairs, and that's what you have, okay. All right,
Yes.
fair enough.
And this is a limit that you feel comfortable with? This is,
Yes, I do.
okay.
And I mean, by 50 individuals, I guess I would go back to the planners, is 50 individuals, does that include staff? Or is that guests? The way I read this, it would be 50 individuals in the building.
So 52. So 50 individuals. During a conversation with the applicant, planner asked, how many people do you want to have at your event space? What is the capacity? Because we knew that that was a question that planning commission sought the answer to. And the applicant responded about 50 people due to the nature of their events. Their events are, where do I have that listed? Business meetings, church gatherings, baby showers, stuff like that, so.
So I
And
would.
2 additional employees, so probably 52 people.
So is 52 correct, the maximum number of people that will be in your building, including yourself at that time?
Well, as of, yes.
You have,
To my knowledge, as of right now, yes.
okay. Well, I mean, if we approve this based on,
It would have to be 50.
I mean, we are putting a limit on that occupancy based on this motion, if we make that motion. So I want to be clear, 52 is what you are saying, you're comfortable with that being the maximum.
So in the event, we might go to 60, it goes over. Is that allowed? If
Well,
we
it's
go
not
with,
allowed if our motion is 50 individuals, that's what we're approving, if that's the motion we make.
so can I go higher than 50? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Just in case,
So-
because I don't want to say 50 and then we have 55,
Yeah.
and you only approve 50. You know what I'm saying?
So,
A little leeway.
yeah, see,
You said the max is 100.
On the fire department side, based on the measurement that they gave and what the division factor is, gives us, with tables and chairs, 104, but non-suppressed, so 100 persons total. Now, what your usable space, what you're saying is you only have tables and chairs, that's up to you, but now, factor in what they're saying is parking and all that stuff. On my end, they cannot exceed 100 personnel. Because
Then
the space allows for 100.
So I would ask the planners, what is the maximum number based on this floor square footage? What should be the appropriate number?
and see, this
Is
is.
that a trick
yeah.
question?
I-
I see the smile, is that a trick question?
The applicant's site plan states that the events will consist of 50 people or less, which is where that number was derived from, in addition to the maximum of 2 employees.
I mean, you're the business owner, so we're gonna trust your judgment. I just don't want you to hem yourself into a situation.
Right.
So, in my opinion, I'm not speaking for everybody, I would allow yourself some flexibility.
Yes, well, can I, like at least,
Could we know what the maximum is, and maybe we set the motion just based on the max, so we're not overstepping? Would that be possible? What is the maximum the space utilizes? If it's 50, it's 50, or if it's 60, it's 50? Can you
It was
tell us?
100.
50 is a lot less than that.
Yeah.
What's the max?
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, from my perspective, and this is just me speaking, in my opinion, we actually have no authority. I don't believe we have actually any authority to limit number of persons because this isn't a special land use case. If it was a special land use case, I think we might have some teeth. But because this is simply a site plan review, because the B2 does not, designate event spaces as special land use, therefore, we're stuck with the stipulated review requirements of site plan. And in nowhere in site plan is, do you accommodate the right number of people? That's not a standard for review. The only option to condition a site plan is if there are minor corrections necessary. But in this case, there are no corrections because the site plan complies. So to me, the only legitimate standard is that which the fire code sets, in my opinion. Again, if this was a special land use, I think we might have some latitude, but because it's a site plan review, I don't believe we do. So that's just my opinion.
Should we just strike the capacity here to the 50, right? Okay, we all agree, okay. There's your flexibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, please listen to the fire marshal and ignore everything we just talked about. Yeah.
Don't exceed 100.
Oh, no.
Is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to?
Well, I have another question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to get clarification on the parking, that at the time of event bookings, the business owner provides the details of appropriate guest parking areas. So each event means the business owner will provide the parking details?
Correct.
And who do they provide that to?
To the individual that is booking the event.
I gotcha, okay. Gotcha, good.
Again, okay, now thank you for pointing that out, because now I have another question. So, the site plan complies with the requisite number of parking spaces, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the number of parking spaces does not need to be corrected. It is compliant.
Yes.
Okay. Again, it's a condition I don't think we can technically make, but if someone would like to make a motion to approve of the site plan for the proposed event space at 22410 Gratiot Avenue with that contingency, then,
Make that motion.
okay, is
With what?
the contingency that at the time of the event bookings, the business owner provide details as to the location of the appropriate guest parking areas.
Does that mean that the applicant knows everybody that's gonna show up, or is it just the person who's booking it, and they get a copy and they distribute it, is that what we're saying here?
Right, the person who books it.
If I, in my mind, I'm understanding it to be, Ms. Hightower is renting her facility to whatever church, and they're gonna have a social, and she's gonna provide the church organizer details that you have to park in these spots. That's how I'm
Yeah.
interpreting it. Unless I'm off my kilter, which is possible.
No. Which to me would just be good business practice, but.
It seems to me it would be.
So I'm sorry, to be clear, is a commissioner prepared to make a motion to recommend, to approve the site plan for the proposed event space at 22410 Gratiot Avenue contingent upon the owner provide at the time of event bookings details as to the location of the appropriate guest parking spaces?
Do we also need to strike the 50?
I did not, yeah, my question eliminated the limitation on 50 individuals.
Then I'll make the motion.
All right. Do we have support?
I will support.
We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHunt and support from Commissioner Broll. Are there any final comments, questions, or concerns? Secretary, please call the roll.
Oh, wait, I thought of something else. I'm teasing.
Okay.
Look here, Cole.
Not fine.
I wouldn't blame you if
John's
you did.
face, I had to, sorry. Mr. DeHunt,
Yes.
Mr. Broll,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo.
Yes. Will the planner please review we're moving on to unfinished business item B. Will the planner please review the memorandum of April 29th, 2022?
Yes, thank you. The memorandum and the following text amendments to the zoning ordinance deal primarily with state licensed residential facilities. The table on page 1 of the memorandum provides a summary for the different districts that would be impacted by these proposed changes. The red colored font indicates that that would be a change in the district. There are a couple of uses that it appears that we are missing in the table, and we'll need to convene with Mr. Albright on where those would be most appropriate to locate. So that would include a daycare center. We do have this defined, but it's not showing up in the residential districts. And then also the group childcare home with 13 to 20 children. That also needs to be represented in the draft language. So there's a couple additional changes that we see need to be made before a public hearing could be held by the commission.
Do any commissioners have any questions for the planner? I actually do have a comment on the table. It's really twofold. I have no problem with what's, at least when we get to daycare, adult foster care, when we get to adult foster care for 7 to 12, and then adult foster care for 13 to 20. Just a couple notes. First of all, I have a hard time believing that an adult foster care facility, a small group home of 7 to 12, or a large group home of 13 to 20 persons, is not at an equivalent density to either an RM1 or an RM2 district. If that is the case, then I believe that those facilities should be permitted by right in those districts. And I believe that we would lose badly a fair housing suit if an enterprising developer came forward with a plan for an adult foster care facility in one of those districts of those sizes in one of those districts. I'm not an attorney, but I feel like I could win that one all day long. I could probably provide a pretty good density calculation to prove that I'm right too. And seeing as how it's a requirement under state law, I believe the city would have the burden of proof that that we are the ones that are not being discriminatory. So I think that there's additional work that needs to be done to make some at least comparable calculations. I know it's not easy because trust me, I've had to do it myself. I know it's not easy to make the conversion between bedroom units and dwelling units, which is the language from the foster care regulations and state statutes and, typical zoning ordinance density regulations. But I do believe that this table and the subsequent regulations don't go far enough, to be honest with you, to comply with state law. I will say this too, is that technically, under the law, I don't believe that we are required as a community to permit facilities of a density that would not be permitted by right. And in an R1 district, RT, RM1, and RM2 are not permitted by right or by special land use. Therefore, the adult foster care facilities for 7 to 12 and 13 to 20 persons don't need to be a special land use by law. And it is a question if you were living in your neighborhood and a 20-bed residential facility was in a building next to you, how would you feel about that? It's a pretty intense density. So it's a question to ask the commission. And trust me, I am all for making sure that people are treated equitably regardless of their status or condition in life. But, the law, as my understanding, only requires us to make permissions for equitable densities. So, something to think about.
So you're saying a facility that's, let's say it has 6 bedrooms. There's 2 beds in each bedroom, and let's say they have like a space in the basement that's just space, and they decide to set up 5 more beds there.
Yeah. This could allow, if it were a detached single-family home, let's say of a larger size, the proposed language would allow that as a special land use. But under my understanding of the state law, if you were to have a similar density structure that was not for adult foster care facilities, our ordinance doesn't permit something of that density in an R1 district. So if somebody decided to come in and turn that same single-family structure into 6 individual units and try to rent that out, that would, more than likely, that would not be permitted. So,
And my question is that this says state licensed residential facilities, there's no way to monitor that.
no, yeah.
And the same with occupancy, there's no way,
Yeah.
well, I mean, I guess if they register, you could do checks on occupancy, but how do you know if they're state licensed? So are we only taking state licensed facilities? And again, if someone opens up their house and says it's an adult foster care and takes in people, there's no control.
Yes, sir.
Fire department, we have a customized question on all the run reports that is this a group home? Which entails anything of alcohol, substance abuse, or just multiple people living in a home. So then I'll do a report, and just next I'll try to send it over to the building department, because typically those are rentals, right? They're not somebody's primary residence, so they would know about it. So I'm forwarding that information over to them when our guys go into a house and notice that it is it's not a residence, it's a business.
Yeah.
And because there's times when they put 4 or 5 beds in the basement, no escape windows.
Right.
Can't have that, so, we're trying to monitor it on our end, because I know it is an issue. There is parts of the fire code that pertain to self-preservation, as to how many people, and you have to have people there. Self-preservation, if you're not able to self-preserve, you have to have care there 24/7, and there's all these other rules that fall into it. It's not just, but we do run into it where, there was a room and board house, I forget the address, but lady was just renting out rooms. She lived next door, and she bought the house, and she's just renting out rooms. Whoever. So.
Some people are renting out.
Well, and that's the question too. So if they're state licensed and they have people with barriers, such as wheelchairs or ventilators where they need hospital beds or whatnot, unless they're state licensed, again, who's monitoring this? And how do you get the home set up barrier-free? I mean, I know of people who buy homes and turn them into group homes. They're not state licensed. I speak from experience with my daughter.
Well, there are some requirements that determines what has to be a state license.
If they're
based on
state
the-
licensed.
Based on the condition of the people you're caring.
And then you're talking about the staff being certified, which I guess would fall on the quote-unquote employer.
Yeah, service provider.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is relevant. I had a conversation earlier today with the city clerk and some building department staff. I asked them, what's the procedure for someone who is allowed to open an adult family care home? So if the owner of the home, the private home I'm talking about, lives in the home, it's considered a homeowner occupied situation. So they would go through the office of the clerk and apply for a home occupied license. If they're not an owner, then it goes to the building department, or sorry, if they do not live in the house, it goes to the building department and they apply for a rental application. And through that rental application, the building department schedules their fire and building inspections.
We're all going under the assumption that people are gonna be honest and say what they're doing. We're hoping. And unfortunately, not everybody is doing the right thing, and they're cramming people into bedrooms. A young man that goes to the gym that I go to was in a group home in East Point, and he had to get out because this house was packed I mean, there was barely room for anything. And he got out and he moved to a place in Centerline because there was just no room. So,
Yeah.
this is a ticklish subject because people
Right.
deserve quality of life and they also deserve to have properly licensed facilities.
And licensed caregivers.
Right.
Which I know is going down a whole different rabbit hole, but.
Yeah. A couple other comments I do have on the proposed language, and I know obviously we're going to table this because there's more edits to come. But I did notice on page 62 of the packet, there's a reference, it says state licensed adult foster care small group home. It says 17 to 12 persons, should be 7 to 12 persons. And then also under each of the RT, RM1, and RM2 standards, I think you need to specify, and this is why the calculation on density becomes so important. At some point, you are going to run into a situation where some of those facilities may be of a density that is not appropriate in that district. So you need to specify the facility sizes, I think, in those regulatory stipulations. So, for instance, for RT, I would suspect that in an RT district, a facility with 20 persons in it would probably be of a density that is beyond that which an RT district would typically handle. So you would need to specify what types of facilities would be appropriate in an RT district. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you think so. I don't.
I get it.
So, we don't have to resolve all these things right now, but there's some comments that I noticed. Are there any other comments, questions, or concerns for the city planner? Is the commissioner prepared to make a motion to table discussion and action on the proposed amendments to section 50-10 of the East Point zoning ordinance until July? Is that an appropriate amount of time? August? Until the July 2022 meeting to allow the city attorney and the city planner to provide edits for the proposed text?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have support?
I support.
We have a motion by Vice Chair DeHunt and support from Commissioner Naylor. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHunt?
Yes.
Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Chairman Palazzolo?
Yes. Move on to unfinished business, item C. Will the planner please review the progress report memo 2?
Yes, thank you. So this is just the monthly update to the ongoing progress for the zoning ordinance. There was a kickoff with the steering committee on May 17th. That went well. The second page of the progress memo number 2 shows the priority rankings. That this exercise was done by city administration and then the steering committee as well on May 17th. You can see where the overlap of those top 5 priorities lie. So these are, the rows indicate different areas of the zoning ordinance that we'll be focusing more of our time and energy on. But it doesn't mean that others that didn't rank within the top 5 don't receive any attention. All of these areas need updates and to be modernized. But there seemed to be consensus on the priorities for the 9 Mile corridor, which makes sense with the strategic action plan, the Kelly Road corridor, and then just making the ordinance overall more user-friendly and streamlined. Also included in your packet is a draft of the schedule of regulations. This is just, none of the content in this has been changed to date, but this is to show the new formatting of the design of the document that's been branded to the community and hopefully more user-friendly. We'll also be including a lot more graphics with the zoning code. So this will be a searchable and clickable PDF, and it will also translate directly onto MuniCode where you can still search on that server. And then we just note that the upcoming meetings, of course, the Gratiot Cruise, there will be some public engagement happening that Saturday, and then June 28th is the next steering committee meeting. And as always, if you have ideas or suggestions on the zoning ordinance, we'd love to hear them, so please feel free to email myself or my colleague Mara.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have any questions for city planner?
I'm sorry, Laura, did you say there's going to be someone to answer or go over these things with the public at the Gratiot Cruise?
Yes, we'll be doing some public engagement at that event where we will be in person ourselves.
Is that at City Hall?
I think it's going to be at the library.
Oh, okay.
Any other questions for the city planner? Or any other comments, concerns? Okay. We move on to the second hearing of the public. If you would like to participate in the second hearing of the public, please request to be heard and wait to be called. When you are called, please approach the podium, state your name, write your name on the ledger, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to commissioner comments. We'll start with Fire Marshal. Do you have any comments for this evening?
Because of that, so I know there's a lot of work to find out, like, you know, who's inspecting these charging stations? Gas stations have to be inspected. You know, there's a lot to it. I was just at a conference, it's gonna take about 30 to 40,000 gallons of water to put one car fire out. There's houses out there, use some other, fire trucks in the garage. They can smother the fire enough to get the car out. So you can save the structure, however, those blanks are $6,000 each, one-time use.
Okay.
So we are pushing for the insurance companies to provide those for us. So there's a lot of communities,
Yeah.
the batteries that are,
Wow.
on our side, fire department's not.
All right.
Good
Thank
luck
you.
with the
Thank you for that
insurance
information.
company.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was made aware from Vice Chair Hunt that I completely skipped over the training. So can we have as a commissioner, prepared to make a motion to table the training until the July meeting?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, do we have a support for that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have a motion by Vice Chair DeHaan and support from Vice Chair DeHaan. That's good enough for me. No, I'm kidding. I'll support that. Are there any, we can't comment. It's a table. So Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHaan,
Yes.
Chairman Palazzolo,
Yes.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Mr. Brill,
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde,
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, we return to comments. Mr. Albright, do you have any comments for this evening? Any comments from the city planners? No. Okay. Councilmember DeMonico, you've been hiding away.
Yes, I have been hiding over here. You know, again, I don't know why we ever made this like this, so we can't see each other.
You can
But,
come back up here, Cardi.
What? Maybe next time, maybe.
Next time.
Keep you on your toes.
That's right.
Just a couple quick things. I hope a lot of you were able to make it out to the Memorial Day Parade. That was very successful. And if not, next year. And the committee will be doing a fundraiser, so look out for that. Happy Pride Month, everyone. And won't see you before Juneteenth either, so celebrate and reflect on Juneteenth. And then 2 events I wanted to throw out there in case anybody is free. At 8 a.m., I know it's on a Saturday at 8 a.m. Leo, this is for you too. The Rotary's doing a cleanup and planting at the historical schoolhouse, so get up with me very early on a Saturday and come out and help out with that. And if you have any electronics sitting around the house and you were not really sure of, you don't want to throw it in your garbage can, there is a electronic recycling event that the Beautification Commission is doing the following Saturday on the 11th, 10 to 2 p.m. at the DPW building. So just come up there and they'll take it. And I think that's everything I had. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Commissioner Lalonde.
I have no comment.
Commissioner Naylor.
Comment?
Commissioner Broll.
Nothing tonight.
Secretary Ulinski.
In addition to all the great events Cardy mentioned, he did forget one, which is the Gratiot Cruise.
I left that for you.
Aw, I like when you share. So yeah, anybody, please come out. Really like to have a good turnout this year. The weather will be great, I promise.
Vice Chair DeHaan.
Tomorrow is promised to nobody. Spend time with your children, spend time with your parents, spend time with your grandkids, your nieces, your nephews. Don't take for granted time.
Not your friends?
Not some of them.
Yeah.
You left work out of that.
Yeah. All right. Not too bad. Can we have a motion to adjourn at 8:53 p.m.?
Yes.
And do we have support? Motion by Vice Chair DeHaan, support from Commissioner Lalonde. Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. DeHaan?
Yes.
Mr. Lalonde? Mr. Broll?
Yes.
Ms. Julinski, yes. Ms. Naylor?
Yes.
Chairman Palozzolo?
Yes.